Hello, Uganda. Good evening and welcome to this edition of the Hotseat on 933 KFM. I welcome you, our listeners, across this beautiful land, the Pearl of Africa. My name is Patrick Amara. Tonight, we look into the timelines for the elections from the perspective of the National Resistance Movement, NRM, because they have already given a timeline on how the elections is going to be, the internal elections, and my guest this evening is Director Communication at the NRM Secretariat, the Honorable Emmanuel Dombo. Thank you so much for joining us. Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Patrick, and good evening, our listeners. And it's a pleasure for me to be back here at KFM. Thank
you for honoring our invitation. We meet even before we get into the politics. The world is mourning the passing on of such a humble servant of God, a man with a remarkable sense of humility. I mean, Pope Francis.
I wish to take this opportunity to send my condolences to the Catholic community, first and foremost, the people of goodwill, and all Ugandans, because I saw when the Pope visited here.
Oh, yes.
Everybody was excited. Right from His Excellency, the President, who was the host, to the entire community, Christian community in Uganda, and the Muslims. People made money. The atheists and all non-believers, because the Pope had visited. But above all, when you follow his message and his legacy, you would see that he was a down-to-earth person.
He was. And he went in Uganda. Actually, even there's some pictures I remember. Him standing with the Archbishop of the Church of Uganda, because he visited the Protestant monument in Shrine.
Yes.
And those pictures were beamed around the world. And talking about people of other denomination, he was a remarkable character.
Absolutely, yes. He also met Muslims in the world. He did not only meet Christians, but he respected human beings as people who were created in the image of God. The issues of faith notwithstanding, he respected humanity. And especially those people who were downtrodden and who are suffering. During his life, he has demonstrated that he was not an exorbitant person. And even at the time of his death, when you look at the nature of coffin that he's going to be buried in, when you look at the nature of the ceremonies that are going to be performed, I hear he had read the will and changed the details on what should be done should that time come, in order to demonstrate who he was.
Do you think that sense of humility, do you think that sense of identifying with the poor and the downtrodden is something that maybe will carry on?
Well, the Pope is the heir to Jesus. He's the heir to Peter, St. Peter, and the heir to Jesus. And he's basically living in Jesus' footsteps. What he did is not much different from what Jesus was, because Jesus was not born in the hospital, he was not born in the hotel, but he was born in a kraal, and he lived with the poor. He washed the sinners' feet, and many people didn't understand his ministry up the time he was crucified. To those who have read and internalized what Jesus was, and they live for him, and they live to be his heir, they even live to do more or try to replicate what Jesus was. Nobody will ever understand, but even the choice of the name, those who understand, I'm not a Catholic, but when I've been reading literature about the Pope, they said that even the choice of the name,
Francis,
was a demonstration that he was a person who is on the ground, and it has historical connotations to somebody.
Francis of Assisi.
Francis of Assisi, I don't know what he did.
I'm told he was from a noble family, but he decided to live poor and identify with the poor.
So if that's what he chose to be, I don't know what the place of burial, which he has chosen, what it demonstrates. Because it must have a lot. You should bring here somebody who is well-grilled in the Catholic doctrine, so that we can understand if the Pope chose not to be buried where other popes have been buried and chose the temple where he's going to be buried, there must be a lot of historical and moral significance which somebody could help us to interpret and to analyze.
And before we leave this issue, because it is in the news, it's what is happening right now. That's why I'm seeking your comment. He came to South Sudan, he came to Uganda, he also went to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and you're talking about washing the sinners' feet. He washed the feet of the president of the two protagonists in South Sudan.
In South Sudan.
But look, South Sudan is still up in arms.
I don't understand. I don't know whether they understood what he lived for. There are many people who saw Jesus, they witnessed the miracles, but never understood the ministry of Jesus when he was on earth.
And also he was in the Congo, had a mass, I'm told, almost 1 million people in Kinshasa, but again, look at the Congo.
Well, all this was prophesied. When you read the Bible, you can see that what is happening is not far from what the Bible says. But let me hope that the protagonists in all these altercations, whether in Congo, whether in Uganda, they will reflect and remember that now that the Pope is gone, what was his mission when he came to the Congo and the message he left? What was the message when he went to Sudan and he kissed the feet of the protagonists? What message was he giving?
I think it was a message of peace, and maybe let's leave that at that. But again, here in our own country, another iconic person died, and that is Major Kazora. I'm sure you knew him. You served with him. What do you remember of him? Major
John Kazora was my very good friend. I had an opportunity to serve with him in the 6th Parliament and the 7th Parliament. In the 6th Parliament, we adored the young people who had sacrificed their lives and went to the bush, because he could tell us a lot of stories about the brevity of His Excellency the President, about the battlefields that they went, about the ambushes that they could mount, and the trickery they would use, led by President Museveni in order to win the war. He told us so many stories, and we admired him. He also, during that time, we did so many things, because we came in after the promulgation of the 1995 Constitution, where the first members of Parliament be elected. We were very enthusiastic to ensure that we really come to implement what the people of Uganda had really worked for.
And that's the parliament the president of Uganda doesn't like, the 6th parliament. It gives him a lot of headache. In every speech he has made and making reference of the 6th parliament, it's never good words from him. I don't know what you did.
I don't want to say so, because I know we did a lot of good things together with him. But because there were a number of things that made us behave like we did. One, it was an individual merit parliament. There was no collective organization under which would do, as a party or as an organization, would muscle members of parliament in order to behave in a particular way. Secondly, we're independent in mind.
Yeah, but also a parliament of the Manuel Dombos, of the Winnie Byanyima, of Akwira Bon, of the Okule Park, of Ben Watcher, that parliament was at another level. That you could continue.
Well, that one I will leave it for the listeners, because every parliament had its own challenges and issues to deal with, and because the issues that we dealt with in the 6th Parliament are not necessarily the same things that are being dealt with today. I would want parliaments to be judged according to the times they lived, the challenges they faced, and the work that they did. Because it will be unfair to members of parliament now if you begin comparing what we did.
Let's comparing. You know why I'm actually saying this is because every time the president has spoken about the different parliaments, it's the 6th parliament that I think gave him a lot of headache. I don't know why, but I think because of the Bujagali and the others, it really gave him a lot of headache. And I'm quoting every time he speaks about it.
There are many things that we did in the 6th parliament. In that parliament, we censured ministers.
Yes.
And the president honored and respected the decisions of parliament, which was very, very good because he complied with the constitution. We also debated a lot of motions, but also there are a number of disagreements. I'll tell you one thing. One time we had the movement conference. There was a conference called the Movement Conference, which sat in the conference center and decided that we don't want political parties to return to Uganda now. When we were debating the political parties organizations bill in Parliament just the following month, the members of Parliament decided, they said that we wanted to open political parties in Kampala so that we can allow them to organize as we progressively wait for time to go. That was contrary to what the conference had decided. But
that's the independence.
Going forward, the president did not assent to the bill. The bill was returned, and we rectified it according to what the president wanted.
Was Major John Kazora such a central figure in all these discussions and debates in Parliament at that time?
Major John Kazora was a member who had been a historical, according to us. First of all, we had what we called the YPA, the Young Parliamentary Association, where John Kazora played a very key role. But because for us we came from school, went to university, and didn't have an opportunity to go to the bush, we really revered the people who had been to the bush and the nature of contribution and the risks that they undertook. In the subsequent parliament, in the 7th parliament, we left the YPA and formed another organization called PAFO.
Parliamentary Association.
PAFO was a parliamentary advocacy.
Okay.
And where I became the chairman for PAFO. And you know that in the later years, it is PAFO that joined with the former agenda.
So PAFO was almost the first opposition, to form
FDC. And in all this, Major John Kazora played a very big role in its formation. And he also took a vintage position because of his historical contribution and the offices that he occupied after he had come out of the bush. He was one of the blue-eyed boys. When I was guild president in Makerere, Major Kazora was, I think, either director. He was SDA Kampala.
Okay.
Was SDA Kampala. He became a director in ISO. Then he was elected to, I think, CA and eventually to Parliament. So, for us, who had just entered Parliament from university after we had worked for only a few years, we really admired him and the sacrifices and the risks that they took, that somebody would leave university instead of looking for a job, they choose to go to the bush and come and liberate the country. This was not something that an ordinary person would take joking.
This friend of yours and a man that many Ugandans revere, at one point, I think, in his political career, he was frustrated with the government or the NRM because he wrote a book, Betrayed by My Leader. Have you read it?
When you read that book and you listen to his illustrations about what happened, you would say that they had a lot of conversations when they were in the bush. Some of the things which we didn't know. But also, you discover that he had a lot of discussions with the president, either in their caucus, in the Ankole caucus, in the Western Uganda, or during other forums when he was still in the army or when he was still in the administration. We didn't know whether the side of the story he was giving was the right one, but he wrote his opinion, what was on his heart. Because he is the president, did not take offense because they have never heard the president. I don't know whether he has had an opportunity to read the book that Kazora wrote, but I've never heard the president comment about it. And somebody tells me that I read the book, and in that book, Kazora was unhappy with many people, including myself, when I had been chairman of PAFO, but could not join my colleagues into the reform agenda and the forming formation of the Forum for Democratic Change. These were his opinions. Unfortunately, I was just scribbling down my memoirs, and I thought he would have an opportunity to read my view and why I chose to behave the way I did. Unfortunately, God has called him. But what pleases me is that recently I read that Honorable John Kazora had made up with His Excellency the President, and they even had a meeting. I didn't have the details on what transpired in the meeting, but when two people meet and discuss and they forgive one another, who are we to say otherwise?
Okay, there's no doubt he was an iconic figure. There's no doubt he He did his part in the service of the country.
He did.
And there's no doubt he'll be remembered as one of those on the Ugandan political landscape that he came and did what he could. We're going to take a break, Honorable Emmanuel Dombo. When we come back, let's look into now the timeline of the NRM party electoral process. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amara, and my guest tonight is Director Communication at the NRM Secretariat, Honorable Emmanuel Dombo. Now, I know that the NRM electoral timeline has been set, and if I can see quickly here, this Friday, on the 24th of April, is what we expect to see
expression
of interest and nomination at village level. In fact, so the campaigns are almost here.
Well, you know, about 2 years ago, the Independent Electoral Commission called the stakeholders and they gave an interim, because it was a proposed roadmap for purposes of consultation. That roadmap has been progressively amended a number of times by Independent Electoral Commission. But once that roadmap came out, the individual parties were now supposed to develop their own internal roadmaps in compliance with the statutory deadlines that had been given in the law, but also the dates that had been given by the Independent Electoral Commission. I'm glad to report that the NRM recently unveiled the roadmap, and we also launched our digitized register.
Before we go to the register, so the day after tomorrow, what exactly happens?
The day after tomorrow is basically nominations.
For LC1?
Because they are picking interest. The expression of interest is going to, this process is going to run from 24th to 30th
of
April. People are going to pick nomination papers. They go and comply with what is required of them. Those who are supposed to pay nomination fees, they are going to pay the nomination fees.
What level of leaders are these? These
are the structure elections for the leadership of the NRM. Those people who want to become leaders of NRM at branch level, it will be subsequently escalated to the parish level. Then after the parish, we shall go to the sub-county. And the sub-county, we shall go to the district level.
So you cannot go to the district level, or even you cannot be a member of SEC without getting involved in this?
No. Ordinarily, electoral college voting, that was what should be. Under NRM, that issue was exempted. People can join the structures at any level that they wish to. Because you have seen members of parliament who may not participate at village level becoming chairpersons of districts of NRM. You are going to see President Museveni, who is the national chairman of NRM. He doesn't begin from the village, but he is eventually elected as the national chairman of NRM. So these structural elections in NRM, you can express your interest as and when or at whatever level you wish to. But what is important
is that the people who eventually make the electoral college.
Absolutely. We are going to elect. These ones use adult suffrage.
Okay.
The elections, which will be on the 60th.
Is adult suffrage?
There will be adult suffrage by all members of NRM who qualify to vote.
But the elected officials become the electoral college.
Now, the elected officials are going to become the electoral college that will go to the parish.
Okay.
And once they are at the parish, they will now elect the executive for the parish and the electoral and the officials or the delegates who will go to the sub-county.
So there's a lot of election that is going to happen?
Absolutely, yes. We are going to be running the elections.
People are going to be fatigued. There's too much elections.
Not necessarily fatigued, because every election is different. The fatigue only comes if every time you are electing at village level. Then people get tired. But every level that we go to, there will be people aspiring to joining bigger offices. We are going to have parish leaders. We are going to.
So what determines that if you're going to pick nomination forms, does everybody pick nomination forms, or you have to be in the register at the village level?
You must be a member of NRM,
and must be must be verifiable.
Absolutely. Well, you must be a member of NRM. That's the first qualification. you must be a member. And what determines membership is that you must be in the register.
At the village.
You don't just wake up tomorrow. If you didn't register and you are not in the register, you are not going to say, I missed, now register me because I'm aspiring. You know, even the Independent Electoral Commission, there is no way you can contest and compete for any position in Uganda, electable, unless you have been duly registered. If you have become a member of parliament and you are not duly registered by the Independent Electoral Commission, you surrender your right. Then you cannot participate as a Ugandan, even when you may be a Ugandan, and everybody knows that. So these elections are going to take place on the 16th of May. And these elections are going to be very important because of this. Mm-hmm. This is the first elections in the NRM where we are going to use our register for determining the people who are eligible to vote. But we shall also use the same opportunity to check our register and delete people who may have inadvertently been registered or who may not have been plowed out of the register when they have left the party. And then thirdly, we are also going to elect the flag bearer for the LC1 elections, which are going to be elected, determined in future, but for us, we're going to conduct it on that day. This one will help us do two things. Mm-hmm. You have people who want to become chairpersons of LC1, but others may want to become chairpersons of the party. So, because we are running the two elections at the same time, we are going to have people agreeing and compromising to say now that Honorable Dombo, you want to become chairman of LC1. I think then so and so qualifies, or you can leave this position for somebody who wants to be the chairman of the party at the branch level. So
there's no more standing behind the candidate?
No, it is by lining.
It's by lining.
Elections in NRM is by lining behind the candidate. That's constitutional. It's not something that we are going to debate.
Okay.
And it has two advantages. It also has its own disadvantages. But for us in the party, the advantages outweigh the disadvantages.
One of these, it saves you the burden of logistical.
The logistical arrangements becomes easier. And then it is transparent. That's the most important. Because the people will see that Dombo is standing in the line and there are very few people behind him. Now with this era of of smartphones, I will believe that every village we shall have data available, so that in case there is a petition.
But there could be that person who is scared of going against you because you will be seen. So there's a disadvantage.
That happens.
There are people who can be intimidated.
Definitely, some people will not vote. A person like me, if there was a secret ballot and I was in my village as a party official, I would have voted without anybody knowing whom I have voted. But because it is lining up and I'm a party official, I cede my right to vote in order not to appear acrimonious to anybody, so that I can go and do party work without anybody fearing.
That's the disadvantage.
That's the disadvantage.
That's where democracy is lacking on that side.
No, that's part of democracy. People are participating in guided democracy. There is no standard form of democracy. America has its own form of democracy. But UK has its form of democracy.
Don't joke with secret ballot. Secret ballot is people really express themselves and things can come out even unexpectedly because of a secret ballot.
No, in my place, we had secret ballots in the general elections, but in areas where the husband suspected that women they are going to vote for me, they would ask them to feign ignorance and sickness and say, I don't know how to read and write, so that he calls the husband to help her tick on the candidate they would want. Even under secret ballot, there are a lot of disadvantages that happen. We need a lot of civic education. We need a lot of protection of people who are going to vote. But above all, we need people who are conscious, who know why we are voting, and who know
But let's face it, in the event of an equal power relation in the village big man who has a lot of influence and an equal power relation to the others, others may find it hard to go against him because you work in his farm, you work at his house, you work at his school, you work at his clinic. How many people, even if you think it wouldn't be the right person.
How many people will that be? But that will be the disadvantages that we live with. That will not be fatal. a few people may vote you because you have such a moderating influence in the village. But you know, during the voting, you're not supposed to look behind. Once you line up and face in the front, facing behind can lead to a disqualification.
You have been telling us about these phones and what they can see later. Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, we're going to take a break. When we come back, let's look into when are the members of parliament, those who have interest picking the forms, and this time around, what are you going to do with the issue of independence? We'll be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amara. My guest tonight is Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, Director Communications at the NRM Secretariat, and we're discussing the NRM timeline for the electoral process. And when do members of parliament also pick their forms?
We have a series of elections that is going to take place under the NRM roadmap. We have the special interest groups, which will be electing their leaders, and some of which will constitute the delegates who will participate in the elections for the election of the members of parliament who represent the special interest groups. That one, the expression of interest is going to take place from May 19th, and the process will run until May 24th, when the elections are going to be conducted for the special.
It's less than a month away.
For the special interest groups. Then for members of parliament, for constituency and district and city woman MP, the expression of interest is going to take place between 2nd June and 15th June. This is a bit long because this is one of the fertile areas where we have had a number of people expressing interest, but also Uganda is very big, and these ones are going to be nominated at the center here in Kampala. So the nomination is going to run from June 2nd to June up to June 15th. The nominations will be from 17th up to 30th of June, and then the campaigns will run from 1st July to 14th July. And this time, according to the regulations, we plan to have joint campaigns where the candidates are supposed to move together like we used to do and like the constitution of NRM says.
I remember even see it.
Even the CA, that's what it was. Even me, in the 9th and 7th Parliament, we are moving through. We came here because of the weight and because of the advantage. It became easier to compare during a joint candidates meeting. We want to enforce that under the regulations unless there are specific
What
problems.
are you trying to cure?
No, we're basically, we're complying with the Constitution. That is the value in the national resistance movement. Secondly, we are trying to cure where people tell a lot of lies. Because you tell a lie about Kamara, then Kamara will stand up during the response or when his time comes to debunk the lie. And the people will make an informed decision. Will make an informed decision. Secondly, it is cheaper for the candidate because the meetings are going to be organized by the party. All the expenses of the meetings will shift from the members of parliament or from the aspirants to the party, which must organize the venue, the public address system, and arrange for security. Third, there has been no logistical problems that usually candidates face of giving people money at a joint meeting, because that will be illegal, and if anybody attempted to do that, that can be a basis for disqualification of a candidate.
That sounds okay, but now the elephant in the room always is people crying foul that they have been cheated by the primaries of the NRM and even other parties, and sometimes they defy the party decisions and go independent, and sometimes even go independent. Quite often they even win. So the issue of independence, what medicine do you have for it?
Defiance is inborn in some individuals. People can only limit the level of defiance and whether they can be educated to understand what is expected and what should be done. You saw in the American politics, you saw when a former president defied all the norms and refused to do what was supposed to be done. There were even demonstrations and people died in the US.
Yes.
So it is not only an issue of NRM, but it's an issue that.
But because I've heard over the time you saying that you want to ensure this issue of independence doesn't come back to bother you.
We strongly believe that independence come up because of the poorly organized elections, internal elections of the NRM. The bad elections in the NRM come in two ways. The first one, if there is no voters register, so that you don't know who votes and votes where. The second one is when you have bad election officials who tamper with the results after the elections have been conducted. For us in the NRM, we believe that once we cure these two, we have the legitimate members of NRM voting, and what they have voted and been declared on the declaration form is remitted or transmitted to the subsequent levels and is tallied correctly. We believe the losers are going to lose with honor, and they will know that the process has been transparent. And in so doing, we believe they should come and support the people who have won, so that we limit on the number of independents in the.
But that appeal has always been there, and like you've said, some people maybe are born to defy it. Has been defied.
No,
and sometimes they exonerate themselves because in the general election they actually win with resounding victory.
Purely because the internal processes haven't been clear. Like last time you saw, we didn't have a register. The national chairman had to go in at the very tail end when he saw that we were likely to have a bigger problem. He advised the branches that when the voting comes, first of all, take statistics and know that whoever is a demonstrated member of NRM and let them join the line. But in some lines, when I saw the video clips, you would see people who had the children on the back. They would count the parent, but also count the head of the child who is on the back. And that is because the officers who were given to conduct the elections had the sides which they were supporting. And the process was not very credible. Although the number of independents was not as big, but right now the biggest number of next to the members of parliament in the NRM, the next number is from the independents. So we believe once we have done a credible process internally, we believe even the number of independents should be able to reduce.
I have seen you have changed the figure, the fees, the nomination fees, and that is causing concern. In some cases, it has increased by almost 50%, and in some cases, at the highest level, even by 100%.
Absolutely, yes. Why? But, Mr. Kamara, if you're aspiring to lead a mass party like NRM, and they ask you to demonstrate by paying 3 cows, because they increased the money from 10 million to 20 million. And if a cow is about 7 million, like many good cows in Ankole and other places in Amuru. So if a president who cannot pay 3 cows to demonstrate that he must contribute to the cost of elections, would that person be able to lead would he be a good example in the community? So although
that's part of resource mobilization.
It does resource mobilization, but also it shows commitment. Because it is commitment to demonstrate that really you are willing to take up the position. And if tomorrow we are talking about wealth creation, you must be a good example and be a good teacher.
But some people are complaining that the youth, the elderly, persons with disabilities.
Why are they complaining? Because the money they are supposed to pay at their level is not as much. Because not everybody is going to aspire to become a national chairman, and not everybody is going to aspire to become a presidential candidate. We must delineate. Some people started complaining and saying that the fees is being discriminatory.
So what is it now for Member of Parliament and maybe LOC5?
Member of Parliament, they are going to
pick a few areas.
The Member of Parliament is going to pay 3 million shillings. And basically, we'll revise
a non-refundable 3 million.
Yes, we revised this to be in tandem with what the Independent Electoral Commission charges. The members of Parliament themselves amended the law in Parliament and increased this amount of money from 2 million shillings to 3 million. Then who are we? Because it is our responsibility, once the flag bearers have been determined, all these costs to the Independent Electoral Commission are going to be met by the party. The party pays for our members all the way from the president, for members of parliament, chairman LOC5, the district councillors, even the chairpersons LOC1. that nomination fees to the Independent Electoral Commission.
If you have the flag.
If you have the flag, it is paid by the party. So it is something that we used. We believe we should be able to mobilize some little money to enable us to run the elections. Because just imagine, if we have about 3,000 aspirants running for members of parliament, and each one is paying 3 million shillings, that is a whole 9 billion. 9 billion can be very good to defray the costs of the running the elections and doing some other processes. So those ones who wanted to complain, I was in the village the other day. I've been moving around members of members of the public. People are not complaining at all. The other costs are this. For members of parliament, it will be 3 million shillings. The president of Uganda, in order to be nominated, you pay 20 million shillings. This is the equivalent of 3 cows, like I told you.
That's the same almost with the Independent Electoral Commission. I think so.
I think so. Then when you have to the Lord Mayor, it's going to be 1.5. The Lord Councillors is going to be 1 million.
That's very interesting. You have the MP paying 3 million and the Lord Mayor, who has a bigger constituency, is paying 1.5. How did you arrive at that?
Well, because they thought it was a local government. When you look at the structure of our administration, until recently, the city was taken as a district. So I think that was the mentality that was considered, that member of parliament is national level and the Lord Mayor is local government elections, and that's the fees that was given. And then the LC5 chairpersons, 1 million, and LC5 councillors, 200,000, city division mayors, 1 million, and the sub-county, the municipal division councillors, 100,000, and for NRM structures, which we are going to begin tomorrow with the expression of interest, we have the national chairman paying 20 million, the first national vice chairman, and the second national vice chairperson. Each of them, whoever aspires for any of those positions, will pay 10 million.
That is for picking the nomination fees?
Yes.
As you expressing your interest
as you get nominated.
In the NRM party?
In the NRM party.
Okay, we're going to take a break here, Honorable Emmanuel Dombo. And when we come back, my producer, Mr. Stephen Mbide, will open the lines so that Ugandans who are listening tonight can also have an opportunity to have their say. We'll be right back. Welcome back to 933 KFM, and this is the Hot Seat. My name is Patrick Amar, and we're discussing the NRM electoral timeline. We already have somebody online. He's been waiting to have a call online. Hello.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. What's your name, and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Mukono.
Yes.
I'm called Glory in Honorable Dombo.
Yes, please.
Thanks for the work. You are my neighbor at Kauga.
Oh, it's a pleasure to hear from you.
Yeah, just at Jaja Sarah Press there. Allow me to salute you for the good representation of the party.
Oh, thank you very much. I didn't know that people are appreciating.
Because you're a guy who is accessible. I've gone just around that place. But what I'm asking, I was once recorded in the books of NRM. But this time I felt to be to go and be updated in the books. Would that deter me from taking part in the in that election process? Thanks a lot.
Previously, being registered in the NRM book, there is a likelihood that you are still in the NRM book in the register, because we did not construct a new register, but we were updating and increasing the members on the previous records that existed. So if your record is there, most likely you must be there. What you do on the day of elections, you should go to your branch or village and check what the register says.
All right. Thank you very much. There, caller from Mukono. I have another call online. Hello.
Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Namgongo. Good evening, Mr. Dombo.
Good evening to you.
allow me to make this comment. I am not directing the show, but when you invite people like those who are specialized, my humble request is just do the questioning. Just do the questioning. We listen. We know what we need to hear, because the questions that usually come in don't usually point to what we need to hear. So I request that you drive the interview and we listen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
That's part of moderation.
Yes, thank you. I have another call online. Hello.
Yes, Mr. Patrick. Thanks for that, sir.
Good evening. This sounds like a code.
Yes, sir.
Go right ahead, sir.
Yes, Honorable Dombo. Good evening.
Good evening, and it's a pleasure to hear from you.
Definitely. We are here to Guanga.
Gali wa shefe, we bali kulomo lunyole, ohese ona bandi abasigaye.
Hey, watch a Kiluga. Okay.
You know, I was a voter for Honorable Dombo in 2006 and 2011 in Utaleja and a press school in Aporogoma.
I've never seen you physically, you man. You look 19. How did you vote for 206?
Yes, no. I grew from the headquarters called the irrigation schemes where I grew from.
Okay.
And that's why I came to learn Lunyori very well. My question is to the Honorable. You have spoken a lot of, actually enlightened a lot of the issues in the NRM. When it comes to the primary of NRM, for sure, it's for death and life. Now, whenever NRM goes for any primary, there's a lot of chaos, and they start to point fingers at the secretariat that you end up favoring one side of a candidate.
Okay, let him.
I've kept them coming on and on. I don't know how they are going to handle this issue this time around. Thanks for the show.
All right. Respond to
One, I want to tell you that we have picked intelligence information to know that there are some aspirants already who are engaging and trying to compromise the security. They are trying to influence the DPCs who should be deployed where. They are trying to compromise the various security agencies within their respective areas in order to use the security to compromise the process and ensure that they get elected. We had a problem in Katakwi where during the primary elections, there was a scuffle and a woman was shot and she died in the previous elections. We are going to escalate this concern to the Commander-in-Chief and the National Chairman of NRM to ensure that they give necessary instructions and orders to the security agencies, but also that they deploy intelligence in the respective areas in order to find out the role of the security, so that they don't interfere in the internal processes of NRM. We believe that the Secretary General has already escalated this matter and is discussing it with the relevant organs of government and also the national chairman, who is the commander-in-chief. But also we need to do civic education to the people who are going to aspire to know that in every election there is a winner and there is a loser. There can't be two winners in any elections. And let us have a free and fair elections. On our part as a secretariat, we are going to try our best to ensure that we minimize the challenges that we have had in the past.
Let me try to pick the very last caller online. I have a caller. Hello.
Good evening, Patrick.
Good evening. What's your name, sir, and where are you calling from?
This is Dan calling from Mukono.
Dan in Mukono. Go right ahead.
Now, my concern is that I don't know what the constitution says. For instance, if I actually am dissatisfied with the primary, and some consultations have happened, and someone goes contest an independent candidate, and finally wins. Despite the fact that the person doesn't own the NRM card, what does the party now say about it? Will that person continue serving as an NRM cadre?
A caller from Mukono, and that's going to be the last caller. And after responding to him, Honorable Dombo, you also make your concluding remarks.
Previously, because of the challenges that we have had in the internal elections, The national chairman and the Central Executive Committee have been moderate on the way we deal with the dissenters, those who oppose the provisions of the Constitution, because according to the NRM Constitution, anybody who supports somebody other than the flag bearer or who contests, because by you contesting as an independent, you are already opposing the flag bearer, that you'll be deemed to have been expelled from the party, but after the due process has been handled. Well, recently when we were in Electoral, we had an opportunity to have a chat with the national chairman about this matter, and he said we cannot enforce it because our internal processes were not clean. He said in order to enforce that mechanism, let us do credible internal elections, let the processes be credible, let the losers accept and believe the outcome of the results. Then at the end of the day, you can invoke the rules and the regulations. That is very difficult to invoke the rules when you see there has been internal injustice, and usually the outcome of the general elections bails such people out because we have failed to do or deliver on what we're supposed to do. We are going to try our best as a secretariat to do what we're supposed to do. We are going to appeal to the candidates and aspirants to do their work. We appeal to the members of NRM, and even those ones who are not members of NRM, because I've seen in one of the districts in Isironko, I've seen an FDC in Isironko saying that you vote for me as my candidate, but for the NRM, if you can vote so and so. I think what I suspected when I saw that clip going around is that perhaps that one wants a weaker NRM to be elected, so that he can trounce him in the main elections.
Honorable Emmanuel Dombo, I want to thank you so much for having honored the invitation. I want to thank you for your submission, for this speaking with clarity on some of these matters. And you, the listener, I want to thank you for the privilege of your company. Good night and God bless you, Gand.
The hottest debate on all relevant topics live on KFM's Hot Seat tonight. KFM's Hot Seat covers all the relevant topics every weekday, 7 to 8 p.m.